Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you with the much anticipated Season 1, Episode 1 of WWE Legends House. It debuted tonight live on the WWE Network. This is the show that it's been in the can, basically, for years and years. Since I believe back in 2010, maybe even 2011, this show has been tempted out to show the lights of people. I watched it. The show went 45 minutes with no commercials. I thought basically this show would have been a whole lot better if it was basically in that 22-minute sort of a range with commercials on it. But basically, I had fun watching this, getting to know the people that were on this show. It seems that there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people on this show. So for people who aren't familiar with 80s wrestling or the glory days of wrestling, getting to know all of these guys might have took some time. But I think everybody in the world was going to know who Roddy Piper is, Jimmy Hart, Howard Finkel, Mean Gene Okerlund, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, all of them being huge Hall of Famers. Hillbilly Jim, Tony Atlas. Pat Patterson was around in the Attitude Era, but I mean, like, there are people that aren't really around and aren't really featured on WWE TV anymore. I showed all of them arriving at the house one by one. I thought it was kind of funny how Tony Atlas arrived at the house wearing a Triple H shirt, the best way he could probably figure to kiss ass and make his way back into there. He was met by Hillbilly Jim after that. All of them sort of implored and toured around the house. They were met by Jimmy Hart, who was showing how basically everyone had their own pre-established bedroom and who their roommates were going to be. Met by, how they had a bed, and on top of their bed was a huge, picture of themselves from back in the glory days for them to sleep under, to make sure they knew who everybody's bedroom was. But basically, Jimmy Hart was concerned that his bedroom did not have a bathroom, and he was going to have to walk into Roddy Piper's bathroom every time he had to go to the bathroom. And plus, the bathroom didn't even have a door on it. But basically, I think everybody took to their room situation a whole lot. Hacksaw Jim Duggan sort of pointed out the fact that when he got there, that him and Tony Atlas were two guys that back in the day were always sort of strict competitors against each other. Like they always wanted to one up each other. So more than likely, you're seeing that that's going to be a power source for things to come. Met by later on in the in later episodes when they started not getting along and basically back in the glory days, you'd show up to work, you'd get into a locker room, you'd unpack your bags, you'd find out who you're working that night, you go out there, you do your 10-minute match, you come in the back, you grab your gear, and then you're down the road. And you're not really in a situation where you're living with each other constantly over and over and over again. Once everyone, got their room situation, there was no real, friction between who anybody was rooming with or who was there. I always kept on waiting for somebody to walk in the door and not, be expecting everybody else to be there, and maybe somebody look across the room and go, "Oh, you son of a bitch," and maybe a full out just brawl starts breaking out there. But basically, I don't know who this chick was, but some hot chick named Ashley showed up. She was sort of the events Legends House coordinator. Every day she was to show up and have some sort of activity for them to do, and she had fresh bunt cakes that she gave to the boys that they were supposed to walk around the neighborhood and hand them out, and to sort of meet the neighbors, you could say, so that way everyone can know that the wrestlers were there. And of course, probably these people in these nice palm string places weren't going to be really welcoming to the wrestlers coming in. Roddy Piper teamed up with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. They went out and they met a family with kids, and they sort of rolled around on the floor. Tony Atlas, and I can't remember who his partner was, they chowed down on brownies and cheesecake bites at these one people's house. It seemed that everything went pretty much to plan. Howard Finkel and Pat Patterson had some trouble getting somebody to answer the door for him. Howard Finkel talked to the housekeeper, trying to let them know that they weren't bad people. They were just trying to, basically give them this cake and say that they were new to the neighborhood and try to meet the neighbors. Nothing really came out of that. Pat Patterson and Jimmy Hart went to the store to go buy some food. I thought it was pretty funny. Pat Patterson went up. He was going to make stuffed cabbage rolls for everyone. He needed 4 pounds of ground beef. He needed 4 pounds of ground pork. And as he talked to the meat cutter behind the place, he says, "So you like to play with meat all day?" Me being a meat cutter, I liked that joke. I thought it was pretty funny. It took me about a minute before I realized that Pat Patterson said the joke, and it made it a little bit more funnier. And the fact that he talks about he's an experienced cruiser, and he likes to, go on long 30-day cruises, touring around Europe, singing karaoke and things like that, made him that much more lovable. I met Pat walking down the street in front of the IHOP WrestleMania, and then I also met him at WrestleMania Access with him and Howard Finkel, and in the Legends House set, and it was pretty cool to meet them. You could see that a little bit of tension was spotting up. Basically, all the guys were sitting around, basically waiting on these stuffed cabbage rolls to be made. And Tony Atlas was trying to get over the fact that he likes to go out and he worked with kids. The one thing that really came to mind with Tony Atlas was you go back to the late 90s, the boom era of the Attitude Era with Nitro, with Monday Night Raw being really, really big. Basically, MTV jumped on board and they were trying to get wrestling out there and make it as mainstream as possible. They were really big at getting it out there in the golden era, and they tried again during the Attitude Era. Basically giving them their own show, MTV Heat, which was on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, which started out as a show that really you needed to watch, that really did matter, that rolled up in once they added SmackDown and other things, it just ended up being a wash. But they came up with a show, MTV True Life, where Tony Atlas was the small town booker, and basically his whole show fell apart on himself. He had to pay $500 to King Kong Bundy. His show didn't even draw $500, so he tried to put his retirement match on there when he fought some girl who was like China, and they were building it as a shoot match where the chick was actually punching him in the face. And I don't know, if you remember that, leave something in the comments, or if you can find it on YouTube, let me know, because I've been wanting to see it. I think I have it on DVD somewhere in one of my DVD collections, but it's been a while since I dug it out and checked that out. But basically, Tony Atlas was trying to get over the fact that he works with kids, and I think he was trying to, do the thing where he pats himself on the back in front of a large, group of people. And Hacksaw was like, Jim Duggan was just saying, I work with my kids before I work with anybody else's. I'm just trying to make sure they're more well off before I go out and help everybody else. And that sort of seemed, Tony Atlas felt like somebody was, dumping some water on his parade there for you, but. All in all, as everybody kept on waiting for Pat Patterson's stuffed cabbage rolls to come out, they played tennis. Everybody's horrible at tennis. The cabbage rolls never end up getting done because you don't really supposed to start them late in the day. You're supposed to start them early in the morning because it takes a long process in order to boil the cabbage, make the meatloaf, stuff the meatloaf into the cabbage, put the cabbage back into the oven and bake it with the red sauce over it and everything like that. So basically, they ended up not eating, which ends up to be sort of like the set up to the next show where they all go do Zumba and they all try to thaw out steaks to grill on the grill, not realizing that once you pull meat out of the freezer, it takes time to thaw before you can cook it. It seems like all of these guys are married, with the exclusions to Pat Patterson. Maybe their wives are the ones that really take care of them. As the night went on, everybody was drinking. It seemed like everybody was pounding. It seemed like the house drink was vodka on the rocks. And, they said that Roddy Piper had given up drinking in, I think he said 99, September 1st of 1999. I don't know if he really has given up drinking or if he's just really weird, but when I met him at WrestleFest last year, I would swear to God that he had not given up drinking. But that's just me. No confirmation. Never actually saw the beer or anything in his hand. I saw it on Honky Tonk Man. I did not see it on Roddy Piper, so much apologies to him if that is true about him, but he seemed to be very anxious about the house, about not wanting to be drinking or be around the guys. So he sort of was a loner, and he went out on his own, and the guys ended up seeing that he was missing, and he just sort of walked out of the house, walked down the street, and walked to some really large cliff that looked over Palm Springs, I guess. But that was episode 1. I'm looking forward to seeing episode 2. Don't forget, tonight we have the biography of the Ultimate Warrior on the WWE Network as well. Make sure you don't miss that.